And for our final story of this edition of the Rolling Stone, this is going to be a really hard pill to swallow, gang, because I might be questioning some sacred cows, but darn it, that might be what this channel is becoming, the slaughtering of sacred cows. Actually, that would be a really good title for a channel, slaughtering sacred cows. Or maybe for a podcast. I'm thinking about making the switch over to a podcast, but we'll see. Christopher Ruffo. If you're not aware of him, you're not familiar with his name, he's another really good account to follow on Twitter. The last video where I begged you basically to please Netflix, to cancel Netflix. Have you canceled Netflix after telling those bastards why exactly you're canceling them? Okay, if you haven't yet, pause the video, do that, and then come back to learn how the world is even more screwed up, okay? Now that you're back, here we go. Christopher Ruffo. So again, in the last video we talked about, I mentioned James Lindsay at Conceptual James. Well, Christopher Ruffo is another really good account to follow on Twitter. He is an editor at City Journal and the director of the Discovery Institute's Center on Wealth and Poverty, which connects the practical truths of economics with the perennial truths of ethics. That's who Christopher Ruffo is. And lately on Twitter, Mr. Ruffo has been posting documents, actual documents, so actual evidence, showing how critical theory wokeness has infected the federal government. It hasn't just infected the culture, it's infected the government at a lot of different levels. So for example, he posted a thread this past week on how critical theory has infected Argonne National Lab. Argonne National Lab, it handles national security and supercomputing for the federal government. So it's important. It's very important for national security, for national survival, especially now with the rise of China. Argonne National Lab, okay, is conducting a relentless campaign of racial harassment, not against its minority employees, but against its Caucasian ones. A whistleblower actually came to Mr. Ruffo and gave him documentary evidence of this. So for example, top executives and scientists at Argonne National Lab claim the United States is an institutionally racist society and that white lab employees must atone for the pain and anguish inflicted upon black people and unequivocally assert that Black Lives Matter. This is actually what they say. Quote, "We, the executive team of the CMB S4 Science Collaboration, recognize the particular pain and anguish inflicted upon black people, including our colleagues, by the recent killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. Only the latest in a shameful litany. We further recognize the impact of these events on all communities, for whom the threat of such violence is part of the fabric of daily life. We affirm our collaboration commitment to racial justice and unequivocally assert that Black Lives Matter. We recognize that we live in an institutionally racist society and that white people have a particular responsibility to work to change this. We acknowledge that we, both as white individuals and as the executive team of a predominantly white collaboration, have fallen short in these endeavors to date. We recognize that our collaboration must strengthen its commitment to diversity as an asset and inclusion as a right. We understand that although words can be powerful, they are not enough without persistent, ongoing action." Unquote. So there you go. America is inherently racist, and simply because you work at a largely white institution where most of the people who work there are white, you are contributing to racism. Never mind the fact that free will might be involved here and maybe women and other minorities don't want to work at Argonne National Lab. I mean, I know that Argonne National Lab is probably the creme de la creme. I mean, if you make it there, you can make it anywhere. It's like New York in show business, or is that Las Vegas in show business? I forget which one. But could it possibly maybe because of free will and that people don't want to work at Argonne National Lab? Nope. Can't be that. It has to be because of racism. Now, I hope that you paid particular attention about how ongoing action must take place in order to become quote-unquote anti-racist. These are some of the actions that the executives at Argonne National Lab want their white employees to take. Okay, they first give some examples of if you are an actual racist, if you're honest with yourself and you acknowledge that simply because you're white, simply because you're Caucasian, simply because you're descended from some European ethnicity and culture and nationality, you are racist. These are some of the things that mark a racist person. I strive to be comfortable. I talk to others who look and think like me. Perish the thought now. Commonalities. People who actually have things in common, you can't talk to them. You can't build friendships based on that. That's racist. And also, isn't it odd, can I just say, how you only talk to people who think like you? I don't know of two separate individuals in the whole wide world who think exactly alike. I don't have very many friends, but I've got a couple of really good close friends that I've known now for years. Guess what? I don't think exactly like them. They don't think exactly like me. They don't look exactly like me, and I don't look exactly like them. We're not mirror images of each other, simply parroting back and forth white talking points like we're at a game of tennis. No, we had some broad commonalities, we had shared interests, we had shared ideas, and we built a friendship up from that. It doesn't mean that I became them or they became me, or that we worked together to maintain the white patriarchy or anything like that. We became friends based on our own personhood, on our own uniqueness. These executives, these gentlemen, are trying to destroy that. If you do that, if you have the capacity for friendship, you're a racist. That's what it boils down to. Okay, now, but it gets even better, gang, because that's what they call the fear zone. If you are like that, you're in the fear zone. You're a racist. Okay, but if you're in the growth zone, remember, that's not the end goal, the growth zone. There is no end in sight to the growth zone because there is no end to the growing. That's the gag. You will never become an anti-racist. There will always be another line to cross, another objective to fulfill, another hoop to jump across. Okay, that's the gag. But if you are in the growth zone, if you are on the yellow brick road to anti-racism, this is how you will act. I identify how I may unknowingly benefit from racism, okay? I identify how I may unknowingly benefit from racism. I don't know how I'm benefiting, but I acknowledge that I am benefiting, even though I can't tell you how I am. I educate my peers how racism harms our profession, even though I don't experience racism, so it would make more sense to have someone who has actually experienced racism explain it to people, but that is actually racist in and of itself because that's emotional labor, and so asking people to sit at their feet and learn from them is actually another form of racism. I yield positions of power to those otherwise marginalized. Really think about that. You might be the best person for a particular job, and you might be offered a big fat promotion, not as a reward for anything, but simply because the executives recognize that you're the best for this position. Not anymore. Meritocracy is racist, therefore we're not going to give this position to the best qualified candidate, regardless of whether he's a man or a woman, white, yellow, black, red, gay, straight, porcupine, whatever. It doesn't matter. We are simply going to give it to the most marginalized, meaning that a black trans woman should automatically be thrown into that position, even if that black trans woman has only been working there a month. Because you know what? Cindy over here, who is the black straight woman, she's been here for 3 years. She probably could do a better job, but you know what? She's just not as marginalized as the, the black trans queer woman over here. And also, remember, Argonne National Lab deals with national security and supercomputing. Wouldn't we want the best of the best of the best in the top positions? Don't we want people who are competent in these positions? Again, we're talking about national security in a world that wants to destroy Western civilization. You've got Russia, you've got China, you've got North Korea, you've got Iran, you have Saudi Arabia, you have ISIS, the Taliban, because they're still around. They are still around, regardless of how many times we say we have them on the run or anything. They are still around. And even if those groups do eventually go the way of the dodo, you are still going to have terrorism because terrorists hate. So there will always be someone to fill in that gap. If we had any sort of sense of national preservation, wouldn't we want the best people in these positions? Apparently not, because being anti-racist is more important. So we may totally die from, I don't know, an EMP attack, a nuclear strike, or heck, China may just buy out the world and turn us into its own little private resort where we have to, bow and scrape to President President for Life Xi and his harem, or his acolytes and lackeys and everything. But doggone it, we prove that we aren't racist. In fact, we've made the ultimate proof that we're not racist because guess what? We're shining the shoes of a Chinese dictator. You can't get more anti-racist than that. And the final thing that they mention, I surround myself with others who think and look differently from me. Therefore, my personal relationships, my friendships are at the mercy of an ideological narrative. Okay? I like Joe, so I'm going to hang out with Joe. Yeah, he happens to be white, and yeah, we happen to share some beliefs or two, but, we are polar opposites in a lot of ways, but he's a fun guy. I enjoy hanging around him and talking to him. Steve over here is a complete jackass. He's always late, always mouthing off. I don't like the music he listens to. His work is sloppy, but, he belongs to X minority, therefore, I have to hang out with him in order to prove that I'm not racist. If that is not Orwellian, Brave New World control, I don't know what is. Now, if it was just at Argonne National Lab, that would be bad enough. But guess what, gang? It's not just at Argonne National Lab, because Christopher Ruffo, before posting that Twitter thread about the racial harassment that's going on at Argonne National Lab, he posted another thread about the same thing happening at a nuclear facility. Okay, at the Sandia National Laboratories, which assesses the United States nuclear weapons and is a government contractor. This from the Daily Caller. Headline, leaked docs show U.S. government nuclear facility held 3-day re-education camps for white men, which was posted August 13th of this year. Quote, a federal lab reportedly hosted a 3-day mandatory training for its white male executives where they were instructed to apologize for their privilege, along with other tasks such as acknowledging the connection between white male culture and mass killings, per leaked documents reported by Christopher Ruffo. Sandia National Laboratories, which assesses the United States nuclear weapons and is a government contractor, hosted the training in 2019 at the La Posada Luxury Resort. Pause right there. You want to prove that you're not racist by going to an anti-racist seminar that is 3 days long, that is being held at a luxury resort. Let that stew in your head for just a second. It continues, quote, It was here that the laboratory required its white male executives to participate in the White Men's Caucus on Eliminating Racism, Sexism, and Homophobia in Organizations. The caucus was instructed by the organization White Men as Full Diversity Partners. The group is also promoting its next event this September, another White Men's Caucus, which it describes as an immersive 3.5-day residential program for up to 18 white men, ideally a work group. A ticket to the event is $3,000. Wow, the people who are hosting this thing, which are probably all white men, are making a killing off of this thing, aren't they? It purports to teach participants to recognize themselves as individuals and as members of the white male group and gain a systematic perspective and understanding of the costs of racism, sexism, heterosexism, oppression, and unexamined privilege. The leaked documents indicate the training kicked off by instructing the men to make a list of associations about white male culture, followed by the trainers writing white supremacists, KKK, Aryan Nation, MAGA hat, privileged, and mass killing. As promised in the event details, trainers informed those present that white males must work hard to understand their privilege for being white male and or heterosexual. The trainers then implied that although white men are associated with domestic terrorists, they benefit from a range of positive stereotypes that far outweigh the Timothy McVeigh's and Ted Kaczynski's of white maleness per the document. White male culture is reportedly characterized as rugged individualism, a can-do attitude, hard work, and striving towards success, all of which are devastating to women and people of color. So, equal to men. Never mind that men and women are completely interchangeable. Never mind that minorities are human beings and human persons. They, apparently, according to these people, according to this group, the White Men as Full Diversity Partners, is saying that men and women cannot actually compete with white men. They are not equal. They have no capacity to be equal, and therefore they must be propped up by cutting everyone else down. So there is that. This is not even the only two examples, because Mark Stein last week was also talking about how the National Fish and Wildlife Services had concluded its Latinx Conservation Week. There's something little, that's going on, even though Latinx is not even in Hispanic. You are either Latina or Latino. You are not Latinx. As Stein said, this is actually an example of white male privilege, woke privilege, because it is imperializing Spanish. Now, the point of all of this, all of this bad news, is that this is happening right now. This didn't happen in 2015. This didn't happen in 2010. This didn't happen in 1995. This is happening right now. This is happening during the Trump administration. And I will make the same point that Stein did. I do not blame President Trump personally for what's going on at the Argonne National Lab, Sandia. I'm not blaming him for any of that. Every president in the best of times has his plate full. And right now, with the coronavirus, the rise of China, insurrections and everything, I understand. Whoever was sitting in the White House would have his plate full. But here's the thing. This is happening under the Trump administration. This is happening under the auspices of his secretaries overseeing their departments. If after 4 years we cannot even reverse course in the government itself, what's the point? Everyone keeps saying, back in 2016, make America great again, drain the swamp. Now it's MAGA has become CAG, keep America great. How is America supposed to become great if we can't even fix the federal government under supposedly the most conservative administration since Ronald Reagan? And some people say, the greatest administration of all time, even better than George Washington's administration. What's the point if we can't even do that? And here is something else. How can we even hope to win back the culture when we can't even do this? That is a thought to ponder about. And I'm going to leave you all with that question because, as usual, I have been talking way too much. So, have a great weekend, gang. Keep safe, stay free. I will chat at you next time. Ciao. Oh, and cancel Netflix.